Ladies and gentlemen, on the mic today, I have with me holistic life coach and the founder of the Psych Bridge, a non-profit NGO with the aim of providing free mental health services to the youth. Tashfeen Ansari, thanks so much for joining me, man. It's an absolute pleasure.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So Tashfeen has an undergraduate degree in psychology with counselling skills from the University of Middlesex in Dubai. He started his coaching journey in his final year in university after receiving a certification in Neuro-Linguistic Programming. After working with the youth in UAE, he then moved back to Pakistan and established the Psych Bridge. He is a certified practitioner of NLP, hypnotherapy, EFT, TFT, therapeutic art and meditation. So before we get started, about COVID-19 and mental health, what exactly is a holistic life coach?
A holistic life coach is like there's different kind of, let's say, life coaches, right? So usually a life coach would specify in one kind of a technique they would use, right? So if a client would come to them and they would want to set up a goal, they're going through some difficult times, that life coach would use that one specific technique that they have expertise in. So usi form they'll basically go and help them out with. With me, I've always thought that every client is somebody new, somebody different. So everybody who comes to me with a problem or a challenge, I would like to first wonder and figure out what they're like, what's their personality like, what is it that specific problem they're facing. So a holistic life coach, like I have because I have certifications in so many different kind of techniques, I can apply different kind of techniques and on a more holistic level. Like I can either use one or two, or I could blend in or bring in one or two techniques in the middle of a session every now and then. So like tailor make a session for the client because everybody's individual. So that's the difference between a holistic life coach and just in one kind of life coach, basically.
Right. So basically different aspects and different disciplines, sub-disciplines se jo hai, what you've the knowledge that you've gathered, unko you've meshed up, and then you apply them based on who the person is and what type of issue or what type of goal they have, basically. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
what exactly is neuro-linguistic programming? That's a pretty cool sounding thing.
Neuro-linguistic programming, if anybody is familiar with sort of CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy, which is more of it like psychologists and counselor therapists would use. It's very similar to that in that aspect, but what it is in its own essence is that it's a lot on linguistics. So the language we use, everything we make up in our mind, all the thoughts we have, all the memories we have, we narrate them in our own way. So our memories are narrated to us. We use a very specific kind of a language. If I could just give you a short summary of it in a few words, it's basically changing the language we speak. And by changing the language we use for those things, we can change the way we think about them, change the way we see things and perceive things, and change our actions on those, basically, let's say, whatever the problem or challenge is. That's very simply put. It goes very deep, obviously. There's a lot of techniques involved within that, but that's the basic principle of the NLP field itself.
So I'm not sure if I'm going on a tangent here. Like, does this also apply to stuff like, how we use, I know this is like sort of in the domain of sociology and all that stuff, but the word freshman, for example. So a lot of universities started, they had movements in which you had to, it basically was based on a specific gender. And they were saying that the use of the word has a specific, mindset or a reason attached to it subliminally. So is that pretty much the same thing, that certain words, without us even knowing, have certain, backgrounds or certain modes of thinking that we attach to them? Or are you talking specifically from a motivational or a individualistic point of view?
No, everything. Whatever you said, absolutely correct as well. Whatever language we use, it does affect the way we see things, the way we act. For example, let's say I study in Dubai, right? So there's a lot of international students, right? You'd find that people speaking in their native language, whatever that may be, right? They would be more confident, they would do better, perform better in every way, because that language they use also on top of that, the fact that
Sorry, you're breaking up. Could you repeat?
you,
You're breaking up. Sorry.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, where were we?
You were saying that they were better in their native languages.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when you're speaking in your native language for first, that also automatically does boost your confidence. Now, you going deeper to that aspect is describing a situation. For example, let's say if you have a presentation in the next day, right? So if you would say, "I'm going to fail this. I can't do it," right? Going into the presentation with that language, that self-talk is going to basically give you much lesser confidence. As
So
a coach, as somebody
prophecy.
who, in a way, yeah, exactly. So what I would tell a person is that say at least you're going to do okay. You go in using that, say, okay, worst case scenario, I'll do at least okay. So that itself is going to give you a lot.
So I sorry to cut you off. I heard a TED talk a couple of years back. I'm not sure what the person's credentials were, but basically what she was saying was that part of her life theory is fake it till you make it. And I think she was some sort of motivational speaker or maybe even the life coach. I don't remember. But basically ये था कि आप fake it till you make it, exactly like this. Use words that might not reflect कि आपके अंदर actually what your level of preparation you think you are, or what you're actually doing, but project this sort of confidence and this sort of external mindset जिसके अंदर फिर जाके then you eventually start taking up more of those the more of the things that you actually projected rather than the ones that you were actually feeling.
Absolutely. That's one very important aspect of being confident in making to your goal or getting your goal. That is one very absolutely important aspect, that the words you're using, the language you're using, and not even with others, but with yourself more importantly, the self-talk you give yourself, that is very important in these aspects. So that is something we need to always keep in mind. How are we talking to ourselves? What are we telling ourselves about ourselves? So that is one aspect that is very important in that aspect of getting to your goal. And whatever your dream is, to get to that, you need to use better language to yourself as well.
Yeah, that's true. So what made you want to start something like the Psych Bridge? इस तरह की चीजें इतनी पाकिस्तान में हैं नहीं, not as far as I know. Not a lot of people have the goal or the aim of establishing, a counseling organization or somewhere where people can go and seek help or with their issues or with their goals and everything. So what exactly did you see around you, or what exactly was it in you, some sort of vision or goal that made you want to start this?
To be honest, yeah, this all started I've always wanted to be in the mental health field since I can remember, when everybody was in their O levels and deciding kya karna hai, what is that you want to do.
You're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah,
मुझे अभी तक नहीं पता मैंने क्या करना है.
And that's fine itself, by the way. That's okay not to know. A majority of people don't know, and that's you're in the majority right now. So I would be the person saying, is there something wrong with me? Am I weird? Because this is something that comes up quite often. But I always wanted to be in this field, but university just started with it. I went through a lot of trouble. I went through a tough time, and I felt and I found when I reflect back on it, mere liye itna koi tha nahi. I didn't have somebody I could speak to. Also knowing that, I also realized that this stage that you go through from adolescence to young adulthood, you know what I mean? From, let's say, from 18 to 25, it's the most stressful you're ever going to be, because this is when you make your most important life decisions. What am I going to study? What am I going to do? What do I want to do? You're going from being a child to an independent adult. You want to be an independent adult, but you don't know how to get there. And we're not taught all these things when we grow up, while we're growing up in school. So I went through my own shit, and I said, I'm not going to let any other kid go through, and I'm going to help out as many as I can. ये भी था कि I've been growing up and I've been waiting for something to happen. I've been waiting for change. कब बदलेगा? And then I was like, what the hell? Why can't I just make the change myself?
What kind of
I
change
can
exactly?
Start something. Change in that aspect, yaar. We need to be there for each other more. Someone I can talk to in a society where we can coexist rather than compete with each other. We're not. My belief is that we're not meant to compete with each other. We're all of us, 8 billion people, aren't here to compete with each other. If you were here to compete, then hum akele hi hote and we would have had our own life, and that would have been it. The fact that we're all here on this planet together is to coexist. So I always wanted some kind of a way so that we can coexist more than we already do in the society of ours. So maine kaha, yaar, this is one way I can make a difference. If I can get to the youth and implement some kind of a change in mindset, maybe that could, no matter how small the difference is, it's at least I can plant that one seed that can grow up to something different. So I said, if all these things, I don't want to wait for them anymore. I want to get started. So I just came back, packed my bags, and I said, chalo, this is a good way to start.
Yeah, man, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, kudos to you and the work you're doing. We should definitely have more people like you around who are doing the same stuff. Are you counseling a lot of people currently? What's the response been like?
I started off with just 2 over here. Now I have 25 just by myself. 25 clients that I'm currently, so the way I do it is not very conventional, because my timings are office hours, obviously from 9 in the morning till, let's say, 9 in the evening. So that's 12 hours of office hours. So I have clients from 9 in the morning to 9 in the evening. And then for everybody who's my client, they have my phone number and my WhatsApp. So I tell them, I don't care if it's 1 in the night, if you feel like you want to talk to somebody, you give me a call, do not hesitate. So technically I'm on call all the time.
That's
so my
amazing.
Sleeping is like, whenever I get like that half an hour gap, I'm like, I'm going to get to bed. I'm going to get some sleep because I do not know when somebody's going to call. And it's something I like doing genuinely. So mujhe masla nahi hota iske andar. Okay, like I would, and if a client comes to me next week and he says, yeah, shit, last week was pretty tough and I wanted to talk to you and I didn't, I actually get angry. I'm like, I told you can give me a call. So I prefer people actually doing that because this is what I want to do, so it's something that, so I feel like people have been responding to that well. Like there's a genuine trust between my clients and I that they know that I'm genuinely there for them. So I feel like once that trust builds, then the clients, they've been recommending people and they'll be coming to me and stuff like that. So it's been going good so far, man.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's just an unbelievable commitment. So I'll just think about a couple of things. Firstly, like what do you like have sort of you said that you are pretty unconventional in terms of the counseling that you provide. What exactly is your process? If you could explain it in layman terms to people who might not be aware of what counseling and psychology and all that is.
I mean, my approach is very my first instinct with any client that comes in the room is I want them to trust me. I want them to know that I'm there for them genuinely. So first things first, it always starts with a contract. Okay, I give them a contract to sign, which confirms that I was going to be confidential, and it's all up to you. Whenever you want to cancel the session, you can walk out of the room anytime. There's nothing. So that's the first step of developing trust with the client, right? Next step is I know and I recognize KR, no matter how open you are to the idea of speaking to somebody, it's not easy. So I would not force the client to speak. My sessions are derived with the client space. So my room, my office is, it has almost anything you can like think of. Like I keep like a cup of coffee, like I'll give them a cup of coffee if what they want. If they want to have a cigarette, they can just start smoking. Just feel at home as much as they can. If they want to read a book, well, I have a Nintendo Switch here. A couple of times I've had clients who just don't want to talk. I'm like, okay, nahi khelna, nahi baat karni, let's start playing a game.
Yeah, I was
or
wondering
when we're in the middle of playing a game, they start talking. Yeah, exactly. So like I would start playing a game with them, and in the middle of the game, they just start opening up and talking. And I notice that I'm like, okay, there's some opportunity now to start talking, and they don't even notice. So it's like not like this typical thing where you're sitting on the sofa, I'm sitting on the sofa, and I have a notepad on me. And like, I mean, I do that as well, but again, I said depends on the type of
first build a rapport of sorts.
Exactly. I think that's the first and most important step, and you carry that through everything else. So that's what I haven't seen a lot of people. I wish a lot of people do that because again, in a field like psychology, you need to know that there's individual characteristics. So you can't treat everybody the same. You have to be a bit versatile. That's what I mean when I say my approach is kind of unconventional when you compare it to the norm of the psychologists or life coaches out there.
Because a lot of times I hear that so if someone talks about the therapy they were going to or whatever, they usually I've heard people say that it just wasn't a good fit. and that certain certain therapists are a good fit and certain aren't. So I was just wondering if that ties in with what you're saying. So that everyone has a set style, and then they're trying to project that style onto the people that come to them for therapy, and then that fails or doesn't work out. So this is actually pretty great. The other thing I was wondering about was you're providing this counseling for free, and it's a non-profit NGO. So how does sustainability work? What's the plan there?
I mean, look, when their office sessions were in order, जब ये quarantine नहीं चल रहा था, तो people would come in and I would get donations every now and then. So with that donation, I would just support myself and keep it up to do whatever I'm doing. Now it's kind of getting a bit harder than usual. So my idea of the Psych Bridge was always that the Psych Bridge is something that's basically is going to be a bunch of life coaches, which me and I have a member on the team now, and psychologists on board who would give therapy free of cost. That is something that is apart from everything else. Now come to me and my services. Let's say in the future, I'm planning to host workshops with life skills and life tools for kids. I might go to schools. I might maybe start teaching. I don't know. That is far in the future. But whatever I get from there goes, all of it 100% goes back to the Psych Bridge itself. So Abhikli, it's just based on donations, whichever I got. Abhi to ruk gayi hai, it's fine because I can understand.
Do you want to start a Patreon or something like that where people could donate online? If you do, you could send me a link. I could post it in the description. I think a lot of people would love to contribute to the amazing work that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking up a lot of options. If I ever do that, I wouldn't mind. I'm always open for help. Like I said, my whole philosophy is I coexist. I would love help and I would love to help. It's something I 100% believe in. But I as much as people think I know what I'm doing, I don't. I just
imposter syndrome.
I want to do one thing.
The more you know about a subject matter, the more you think you don't know about it.
I feel maybe that is the case, but I really don't know. Everything literally comes to me day by day. I could be the best thoughts I have right before I go to sleep when I'm meditating, and I have a notebook right next to me. I write them down and I imply one by one. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, move on to the next one. How
important or how good do you think meditating is? I mean, it's वो आपका stereotype बना होता है कि वो ओम करके बैठे होते हैं, some sort of jungle or whatever. that's from pop culture and everything. But what exactly, how important do you think meditation is, and do you think it's something that should be stressed upon our generation and the upcoming generation?
There's a reason almost every religion has prayer in it, and because prayer is a form of meditation and so on. And the reason Islam itself has 5 times. So when you do pray, सब लोग कहते हैं यार नमाज पढ़ते वक्त ना मुझे अजीब सोचें आनी शुरू हो जाती है, पता नहीं क्यों. It's because you're meditating, and that's exactly what meditation is. So when you're meditating separately, like if it's not a form of prayer, your mind is going to be shooting thoughts at you. That in itself is it's good for self-reflection, good for emotions that you don't know you have, comes out. You can deal with them right there and then. You can sort your thoughts out. If you have a lot of cluster of thoughts and negative emotions. So it's very good for your mental health specifically, and for organizing what you're doing. If you meditate, let's say 15 minutes, half an hour a day, you're going to find it very, very helpful to you. And it's not like it's shown in the movies. The media does imply some parts are fine, most parts aren't. Okay, there's not one specific way for meditation. There's a lot of different ways you can meditate. You can meditate even when you're going on a walk, or bus park chala jao ya road pe chala jao raat ke in the middle of the night.
I hope everyone just realizes that.
No, don't close your eyes when you're walking on the street or anywhere else. I'm saying there's different ways, but anywhere you're alone with your thoughts, or alone just by yourself and you're thinking, that could be a form of meditation on its own. So and it's very important. It is, I say, especially nowadays, because we don't reflect, we don't go to our thoughts, we don't question ourselves enough.
Yeah,
nowadays,
we're really in a hurry to do something, although we're not doing anything. Pata nahi kya ho raha hai.
We are. Absolutely.
So that's a good segue actually. So because I wanted to talk to you about the psychological crisis of our generation and of even previous generations, and I'll get to that in a minute, what happened there. But do you think our generation is in a crisis of identity, a crisis of purpose, of understanding, and all that entails?
Definitely, we really are, and this is the reason there's so many people now who are struggling with what to do in life, and they don't know what the problem is. They really don't know. They think they're fine, but they know they're not at the same time. So the identity crisis, it's coming from, obviously, like there's a multivariate of factors. You can't blame one thing. Again, you really can't blame one thing. But एक तो हर वक्त हर generation में होता है. Hard generation, when you're transitioning from one generation to the next, there's going to be, because your parents are going to be telling you to do something, you want to do something else, and that develops a sort of a fight between two generations in your mind. Yeah, my parents are saying this, though teachers are saying this, everybody old is telling me to do this, but I want to do this.
Yeah, because
And
that's the way
I
the
have a
world
feeling
is
I might
going.
be right.
Yeah, because that's the way everyone else my age is going or trying to go.
Exactly. Identity.
Yeah, sorry, you're breaking up again. Could you repeat the last sentence?
Yeah, so I'm saying that itself, this fight of between, are my parents right or am I right? That's the first thing that creates an identity crisis. Second thing is, what I also try to tell a lot of my clients and anybody I would meet who's, let's say, under the age of, who's still doing their O levels and A levels right now, and even if you're in your 20s, do what you want to do, not what other people are doing successfully. That's something that's very, very important to understand. Okay, just because somebody else is doing something successfully doesn't mean you need to do that as well. Okay,
Or that you'll be successful at
whatever is trending right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because for example, whatever's trending right now, let's say, हमारे ज़माने में we had YouTubers, right? We were like, shit, YouTubers. That's what we want to be, No, not you. I'm not saying you. I'm saying, look, you look, and I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why in a minute. Dekho, there's gonna be a lot of people, right, who are doing the same thing, but the ones who are gonna make it now coming to the point, like you, for example, who actually get it done.
Yeah, that's true.
Like when you met me, I checked out your Instagram, I checked out your YouTube. You've got shit done. You didn't just talk about it, make one or two videos, and then say, nahi karne wala, that's it, because you're genuinely interested in this,
Yeah.
So that interest needs to be there, not fame. People chase fame, but they don't have an interest in that thing.
Yeah,
and
so
that's
for
what
us, it
creates the
started
problem,
like a hobby, man, and now we're just going with it. So basically, it was like we wanted to do something. It wasn't about कि इतने views पे जाना है, इतने likes पे जाना है, इतने इस पे जाना है. It was like इन चीज़ों के बारे में बात करनी है. We want to talk to people like you. We want to talk about the sports that we love, and then we'll just take it from there.
And that's it. If you need to do something, this is what I ask everybody who comes to me for career coaching, right? Okay, what is that one thing you would do if you could earn no money as a hobby? And you do that. Kuch bhi ho jaye. You do that because usme you're going to be the best at it. You're going to have the most interest at it. And because you have those two things, people are going to start taking notice, and you're going to be successful then.
So about people listening.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. So about people listening who were like, यार अच्छा मैं अगर फलानी एक बहुत ही जो है ना obscure चीज़ करना चाहता हूँ, लेकिन okay, let's assume that my parents will support that. But at the same time, I'm worried that bro, इससे तो पैसे ही नहीं कमाए जाए. Like, what am I going to do when I'm 26 and I want to start a family or something? And I'm like, well, these Pokemon cards aren't going to help.
Okay, fine. Look. Two things you need to understand. You're doing something that you're interested in. Fair enough, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to make that into a job, you're gonna have to get rid of yourself. So, like Pokemon cards, for example. If somebody loves collecting Pokemon cards, fair enough. You do that. I'm with you on that. By all means, go karo. But you need to also say, okay, have an adult conversation with yourself. Okay, yaar, dekho, fine. Everybody's supporting me, but मुझे पता है मुझे डर इस बात का कि मैं पैसे कैसे कमाऊंगा. Why the hell are you asking yourself that question? There's a million people out there who are doing that shit. Go learn from them.
Yeah.
Go on the internet. Learn how people are selling Pokemon cards. Learn what the business is like, and start doing it.
Like start an e-commerce platform for like those collectibles or something like
exactly.
that. I mean, you can turn your hobby into something like that.
Absolutely. And one thing you need to know is that you're never going to learn anything unless you start doing it.
Yeah.
तुम कितनी भी किताबें पढ़ लो, तुम कितनी भी video देख लो, the real shit starts to appear once you actually start executing your plan. that's when you're going to start feeling, and that's when you're going to start learning real stuff. Like, you're not going to be prepared until you start the first video. You're not going to be ready until you start your first sell. Like, तुम जाके पहले अपना Pokemon card बेचोगे, and when the client is going to be like, मुझे नहीं खरीदना, then you're going to start questioning, क्यों नहीं खरीदा इसने? Is something wrong with
one
the product?
bad review and you're like, yeah, am I doing this correctly? Should I just bin the whole thing?
Exactly. So that's how you learn. So you need to get started. Stop asking questions and start doing what you want to do, and then learn from the mistakes you're making. And that's how it starts. Believe me, this is I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I've had, since I started this in November, I've had at least 7 or 8 projects that have failed horribly. But I learned from them.
But
and
you
I'm
only need
apply
one
what
that's going to work. That's the thing people need to realize. That you hear all this, like, I know it's kind of cliche, but Steve Jobs अपने गिराज से शुरू हुआ था or something like that. पता नहीं किस पत्थर से किसी ने क्या बना लिया था. But like, the thing is that all of them had a lot of stuff that failed, and then one just hit the jackpot. So like you were saying before that, so one of the aspects is कि अम्मी अब्बू कुछ और कह रहे होते हैं, and we're saying like our generation is thinking the other thing. What other factors do you think contribute to, you know, the loneliness, the frustration, the anxiety, and all of that?
It's just that. It's the fact that we feel lonely when we're not. We're not lonely. You think you are. I've dealt with not a lot of clients, obviously. But however many I have dealt with, I can tell you that 80% of them have the same thought that I'm alone in this, and nobody else understands what I'm going through. And the next person comes in and he says the exact same thing to me. And then the next person comes in and says the exact same thing to me. But I know all 3 of them feel the same way and they have the same problem. And if they sat down and talked to each other, they wouldn't even need me. I wouldn't need. मुझे मेरी ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ती लोग.
Make sure they never meet, man.
No, they should meet, because I obviously. No, yeah, but honestly, in all honesty, what I'm trying to tell people is, you're not alone in anything. Believe me, I keep repeating this, there's 8 billion people out there. You're not special.
You're not unique.
Believe me, you're not special. Stop having this.
Many million other life forms out there.
Exactly. So this is what we call a dark form of narcissism. Ek to narcissist hota hai na, jo yaar, I'm the best and there's nothing better than me. We have adopted the opposite way around. We are dark narcissists. There's nobody worse than me. I have the worst life possible. Everything bad happens only to me, and nobody can understand me. Get off your high horse. Talk to other people about it. Believe me, you're going to find. Even with your friends, because we're attracted to people who are similar to us in some aspect. So if you're going through some shit, believe me, your friend will understand one of the 2 things. And if they don't, it's time you change your friends.
That's true.
Because your friends because what are your friends there for? Not only for a good time, believe me. And ye hota hai ki if you hang out with the wrong people for a long, long time, come 30, come 40, you're married, you have a wife, you have kids, you don't have any friends, you wonder why, because you didn't have the right friends growing up. You just had friends who were going to be there for you in the right times, but when you wanted to talk to them, they're not going to be there. Exactly. So our generation needs to grow up, frankly speaking, and they need to have real conversations with themselves now. Now is the time, because if they don't right now, what's happening to this generation, like our parents, is going to happen to them again, and it's just not going to work out. So you need to start growing up a bit now and realize and fix your own life.
Yeah, I'll get to the other generations in a bit. What do you talked about loneliness? You think that's the main factor? Technology का इसके अंदर कितना बड़ा role है? Because ours was the first main generation that was growing up in a world with the internet and with mass communication and all sorts of stuff that came with it.
0. I think technology has nothing to do with this.
Really?
If anything, this quarantine proves, by the way, to us, is that technology is actually keeping us from loneliness.
But
the same people who are using their people who are on the phones in the bus had newspapers and books back in the day. Simple as that. It's not that what you're using, it's what you're doing yourself. If you want to talk to somebody, you need to go and talk. It's not that's an excuse. It's a very convenient excuse we can make up. Kya technology ne kharab kar diya hai. Hum phone pe ghase hote hain. You take that 30-40 years ago, that same person would be having a book in their hands in the same environment.
Yeah,
and they would not be talking to anybody.
But to play devil's
advocate, it's not about that.
So to play devil's advocate, it's pretty well, don't you think it's a bit different if you're reading a book to if you're on the internet, because the internet has so many different effects that it has on you. So you're communicating with, so you're just putting your opinion out there, you're hearing other people's opinion. There's this mass information like that's being, thrown at you, and then you have stuff like Instagram and God knows what, where you have like people developing these inferiority complexes and all that stuff that comes with it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So why are you on it?
I don't know.
That's the question you don't answer. Why? It's like a lot of people say, I'm quitting Instagram. I'm like, Q. Yeah, it's too toxic. I'm like, okay, show me your Instagram feed. And I see it, and it is toxic. I'm like, why are you following these people? I don't know. I'm like, so you want to quit Instagram completely, but you would rather not remove these people off your follow list, like they're not exposed to toxicity anymore. Kam ho jata hai. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of factors that are not in your control, but you can always, you're always in control of these things. If you're feeling like your social media is toxic, literally unfollow those people and block off those websites, or just do something. It's in your control. It's that running away is very easy, but that's what I'm saying. This is the challenge our generation faces. We run away, we avoid, but we don't face what is in front of us.
I think we deflect and we project blame.
Accountability.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was saying. Yeah. So we
need accountability. Yeah, it's your fault.
Yeah. So basically, when you said कि हमारी generation के साथ भी वही हो जाएगा जो पिछली generations के साथ है, why do you think it's the only reason was that they just, so if I ever think about, or अपने दादा दादी वाले ज़माने को अगर हम देखें, so in most instances you have a image of people, them going through a hard life, and there were so many huge problems in previous eras, like apart from plagues, wars, famine, and this is I mean, technically speaking, this is a pretty peaceful time to live in, but mental health was never talked about, or it was never an issue, at least on the surface, like कोई बात नहीं करता था उसकी. Do you think it was just a case of them? So what I'm trying to say is, what is different in our generation कि हमें finally realize हुआ है कि mental health जो है वो important है और हमें mental health issues हैं, और previous generations were like they didn't even think about it.
I mean, if you can go back to 100 years, psychology did exist as a field, but because it was still in its new research stages, उस वक्त इतना पता नहीं था हमको. We had mental asylums where people would just be locked in.
Yeah.
We had so many different kinds of electroshock therapy. We had therapy where we would like put up a needle in somebody's inside their eye to hit a nerve in the brain to like just completely neutralize their emotions. What our generation is, why we're better, is because people like Freud and Jung and all these old Zimbardo, everybody who did research back in the day found out a lot of things, and developing on that research and learning from that, we've come to realize the importance of that, because pehle itna research data nahi tha. We didn't even think about that. If you go there, before that, you had philosophers, you had religious scholars. These people did think about psychology. If you read up like philosophy and you read religious texts, there is a lot of mention of the connection of the mind to the body, the mind-body connection, and why you need to meditate and have these thoughts. Because these all of them did. There's a reason I still use meditation as a form of, let's say, helping my clients, is because it was good. It's good now. It was as it was good back then. So it was always present. Didn't have a term for it, perhaps, and wasn't researched on as much scientifically. So I think that is why there's a difference between the two now and the generations before us, perhaps.
Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons. Let's talk a bit about depression and anxiety. So just for people who might not know, because this is, I think, part of the problem. How different is depression from just being sad?
Oh, it's very different.
Yeah.
Sadness is, let's say, a symptom of depression. It's one of the symptoms. So you can be sad, right? But there is a criteria for you to be depressed. And again, coming back to the language we use, right? There's a lot of misused language. Like if you're feeling sad, even one day, you call up a friend, kya hua? Yaar, I'm so depressed today.
Yeah.
You're not depressed. You're sad, right? You're just sad. So the difference is sadness for a month, let's say, for a week, with the proper excuse. Let's say like somebody in the family died, you went through a breakup, one of your dreams just collapsed in front of your eyes, and you're sad for a long period of time. It's fine. That's normal. That's actually healthy. You know what I mean? So that's fine. Now, let's say if you're sad for 6 months every day and you're crying every day for that long period of time, you've stopped eating or you've started eating a lot. You've stopped sleeping or you've started sleeping a lot, and you're not going outside, or you're always outside. Anything that's changed your normal functioning extremely, and it's preventing you from doing your everything, and you're sad, and the sadness is the reason, that itself is then that would be depression. But
could you repeat the last sentence? The internet connection, I think, is pretty bad around here. Apologies. Yeah, you've broken up again. Let's just wait a minute and then we can.
In extreme kind of sadness, which takes away from a lot of your everyday activities, basically.
Right.
Daily function.
Right. So one of the misconceptions, exactly like you mentioned, is so this is kind of interesting. So you're saying that aapki daily functioning, if you're sleeping too much, if you're not going out. So for a layman like myself, and I know that someone like, let's say, Robin Williams, if you're aware of who he is, he was for people who don't know, he was a comedian. He appeared in a lot of movies. He's one of the most celebrated comedians of the last era, but he tragically hung himself, I think it was a few years ago, and because he was suffering from clinical depression. So when you look at someone like that, who was always smiling, who was always laughing, I think it's important to tell people that you can be really depressed. You can be going through a lot of difficult times, but still project a very happy image, or be on stage laughing and making other people laugh. So people technically think, oh, isko to, like, if you hear someone who, like, agar baad mein aapko pata chalta hai ki kuch is tarah ka hua hai, then you were like, oh, ye to has raha tha, isko, like, what happened there? So what do you think that is, like, where are the misconceptions that we, like, what are the misconceptions that we think of?
It's like, I'm sure, like, I don't know, obviously we don't know him personally, but I'm sure the people close to him did know what was going on. Like, he's probably speaking, people who are depressed do give out a lot of signs. They do give a lot of signs, and people around them, like, let's leave Robin Williams for a bit. Let's take Chester from Linkin Park.
That's a good example.
If you actually listen to his songs and his lyrics, the guy's crying out that he's literally confessing that he has depression. Like, his lyrics were so sad. Like, every single song you pick up, almost every single song, he's talking about how sad and hopeless he is.
Kurt Cobain as well. So a lot of the stuff that he used to talk about was just like, man, I'm done. Exactly.
So you need to have an ear out for these things, especially somebody near you is doing that. And there's another thing that I don't understand right now is that, I mean, I'm really happy that Pakistan itself has picked up, let's say, on mental health and all these things, but in the States, there now is a requirement for you to be a mental health practitioner. You need to have suicide prevention training. Because when people are going to commit suicide, the way they talk, the way they act, that changes. And as a psychologist who's in close proximity to them, who's talking to them, you need to be aware of these signs, right? So there's a lot of specific signs that somebody who's going to commit suicide is showing. And if we as normal people would see, okay, like, it's just he's just being a bit weird, whatever's going on. But, like, there's a lot of signs when someone is going to commit suicide that are very obvious. I'm not going to tell them on the show right now, because obviously I want to ensure that nobody gets the wrong message, obviously. But there are, and I think we need to keep up with the world of these things, because it's how we can save lives. So, we're coming back to your point of how do you know, and what's up with the whole Robin Williams scenario, and people who are always smiling, but they're actually, they do talk. We need to listen. We need to start listening.
Just
And
need to be more attentive of what they're actually saying.
yeah. And actually ask people, yeah, if somebody comes to you and says, yeah, I had a bad day, or if they're down, if your dad comes in from work and he's just down and you say, kya hua? Are you okay? He's like, ha, bas office ka masla hai. Don't just walk off. No, go talk to him, like, kya hua? Let's talk it out. What's going on? People who, I can say this much, people who are really depressed and who are having suicidal tendencies, they don't have any hope left in them. You give them that hope that someone is genuinely there for them, they're not going to do anything. They're literally, that's all they need. They need somebody that they know that genuinely cares about them and genuinely wants to talk to them and is genuinely happy to see them. They have something to live for them. So that's what you need to do. You need to start talking to people, be there for them, because you don't know what's going on in their head, and you need to start taking action about it.
Yeah, so that actually ties in very well with what I was going to ask you next. The whole people who are depressed need some sort of purpose or some sort of hope. So I think you might know of this person, Viktor Frankl. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning, which is a very famous book. Listeners who don't know, he was basically he was part of the Nazi concentration camps. He was a Jew who was part of, I think he was in Auschwitz, which was the biggest and most, dreadful Nazi concentration camp. And basically where he got out of, when he eventually escaped from there when the World War finished, basically he devised his own, this idea of logotherapy, it's called, where he says that people who are depressed or people who are not depressed generally have this one, binding characteristic, which is that they don't search for happiness. They don't search for something like that. Everyone who survived in the concentration camp survived not because they were physically the strongest, not because, they were not ill or they were doing something like that preventing them from, not dying. But everyone who survived, it was a battle of, psychology of having a purpose. So for someone, it was getting out of there and seeing a loved one. For someone else, it was something else. And that is what drove them on. So he saw even the weakest people surviving, and people who were physically healthier, even looking at them, they succumbed to, the terrors of Auschwitz because they had this purpose, because they had, this hope in them. So I think that's exactly what you're saying, right?
Yeah, you hope is something that can get you anywhere you want to go. And if you only have hope, like, you need to have hope and purpose, and you need to find that. I think he was also mentioned in, for everybody's listening, in Mark Manson's latest book. I think it's called Everything is Fucked. It's a very good book as well. It's about hope, the book itself. So that's something I think everybody should also give a read. But you need to find hope and purpose. And when you find purpose, that's how you get hope from that. So we need to ask ourselves, yaar, mera zindagi ka maqsad kya hai? Like, why am I here? And that is honestly one of the most difficult questions we can ever answer. But once you actually get even, let's say, 25% of the answer from that question for yourself, it's gonna do a lot of good for you. It gives you a reason to wake up in the morning and finally know why you're doing what you're doing. Your actions aren't meaningless anymore. They have some purpose behind them. So it's something we all need to ask ourselves, okay, why am I here? What is the purpose of this life? Like, literally, like, I'm in this body right now. Why? What am I supposed to do? You answer that question, and I think life is going to make much more sense.
Yeah, but people don't. I think a lot of people would just be scared to open that can of worms. So they'll be like, "Hum is tarah zindagi jee rahe hain, so that's fine. I don't want to open that box. Pata nahi kya, I might just go in and never come out." So do you think it's better to have gone through that experience, regardless of if you get stuck in there, or maybe you're worse off because you're like, man, I can't figure this out.
Like, it's hard. Like I said, it's a very hard thing to do. But thing is, again, accountability comes in, right? Okay, you want to be successful, you want to make it. but you're not willing to do the work. Like you're not willing to. तुम practical कितना भी काम कर लो, but you need to be strong inside here in your mind as well. Yeah, like I need to answer this question, and a lot of people have, like, there's a reason, again, religion and all these societies have had so many followership, because that's their answer. Like, what's your purpose in life? I want to be a good Christian. I want to be a good Muslim. I want to be a good human being. That's what my religion teaches me. That is my purpose. That is our purpose in life. So people like that, they have their purpose, right? But if you're, whatever your belief system is, whatever you are doing in life, if you feel like at one point in time you don't have a purpose and you're not happy, but you want to be happy, then believe me, you'll have to start doing the work. And yeah, of course, it is a very hard and a long way to go. You know what I mean? Like it's like opening Pandora's box. Also, you don't know what you're gonna find. It's a lot of chaos in there.
Yeah.
But at the end of that is something you're looking for.
Yeah. I just want to talk a bit about anxiety as well. So if I'm not wrong, anxiety is pretty like sadness. It's a pretty normal thing to have, but it becomes an issue when you, I think, have it too often or something. So that's something like you will be able to tell better, obviously. So when does anxiety become an issue, and when do you have anxiety?
Again, any kind of emotion, like, and this goes for any kind of mental illness, right? Any kind of emotion which is happening, let's say, without you knowing why, and happening for a long period of time, and is taking away from your normal functioning, is something you want to go and talk to a psychologist about. That is literally the most basic and the most important thing I can tell you right now, because I can get into the specifics of anxiety as well. Let's say, like, you have panic attacks, anxiety attacks, you start developing fear, phobias, a lot of these things start coming up. You're sweating, you're not sleeping, you have nightmares. These are all form, and these happen in let's say, a long period of time.
Yeah, so it's important
You
to
get
tell
anxious,
people that these mental illnesses have very scary and very real physical symptoms as well. It's not just something in your head, even though that's frightening as well.
Absolutely. And the most important thing is, you need to recognize that your physical health is absolutely 100% linked with your mental health, and vice versa. If you have some kind of a mental illness, your physical health will suffer. And if you have a physical illness, your mental health will also suffer. So you need to keep both of them in check, because they go hand in hand. If you're not eating the right foods, if you're not getting the right amount of exercise, your hormones will be in imbalance. Once your hormones are in imbalance, just say serotonin and, like, let's say, a dopamine, right? These are the two happiness hormones. If your hormones are imbalanced, you're going to feel sad. You might get depression. Same thing if you have depression and you start taking multivitamins and you start increasing your dopamine and serotonin intake, your mental health is going to get better, then your physical health is going to get better. So they're all linked together. You can't rule out one or the other. So you need to keep both of them in check at the same time, because they're both intertwined and they both go hand in hand.
Yeah, so that's a good point. But I just want to ask you, like you said, mental health or physical health linked, they go hand in hand. Then why is mental health so sidelined and so neglected? Why the stigma of seeking help or talking about mental health? Isn't taking antidepressants or stuff that boosts up your dopamine or going to therapy the same as going to a general practitioner when you have a physical illness or when you're not feeling 100% physically?
I mean, look, the reason it's so sidelined is because of stigma, and stigma of something only comes up when you have a lack of knowledge of it. When you don't understand something, when it's foreign to you, when it's new to you, that's something we stigmatize. Something new that comes in, we don't understand it. Our defense mechanism is like, it's not a part of us.
Yeah,
it's probably not good.
Unknown.
It's an alien. Let's keep it aside. Exactly, absolutely. So the only way the stigma goes away is if we educate more people about it. People become more aware of it, and it's different in the case because also we're not used to this, and not this generation, but generations of old as well. We have stereotypes of weak people who are not supposed to express their feelings. I don't know where something went up that people have trust issues with one another. You don't want to talk to people, you don't want to express your feelings and share your feelings, and if nobody is doing that, nobody wins in that case, in scenario. So obviously there's a difference between going to a GP or going to a psychologist, because you're emotionally vulnerable in front of them. So there is a difference, but you need to understand that it is very serious, and only when you get it you realize. Just like in any other normal illness, like if you don't have an illness, you won't know what it feels like. Same with a mental illness. If you don't have anxiety, you don't have depression, if you don't have whatever it is, you won't know, and you won't empathize with the person. But it is very important, and you need to educate yourself on the topic more and see what it is like, really.
This is slightly going on a tangent, but have you noticed some difference between the two genders? Because you have something called, it's a popular phrase nowadays. It's toxic masculinity, and people who are, alpha males who are supposed to be the strong, silent type. Even, you have a lot of pop culture references of shows like, I don't know, The Sopranos or something like that, where you are projected this image of an alpha male who doesn't want to talk about his problems, who has to remain silent, who has to face the adversity of life. So have you seen that with your practice? Are men less likely to open up?
Yeah. 80% of my clients are females, 20% are men. So that's definitely there. That has been a problem since, I can say, even the start of time. It's what we're taught, what we observe in society as men. It's kind of I don't know. I feel like we need to open up more about our emotions, because we also have emotions, right? So, but yeah, we've been socialized into the way, like you said, the whole form of toxic masculinity. That is there because it does. Even though I don't completely agree with the whole term of toxic masculinity, but these aspects of it, just the little aspect of, let's say, because toxic masculinity, let's say if you take it on a larger scale, is another one of the reasons that men nowadays have an identity crisis as well, because they don't know all of a sudden, like, what are we supposed to do? So like, but the small aspect of it, like the whole fact that, the sad, lonely type, the brooding guy who takes on life, the lone wolf, all that, those stereotypical ideas of a strong alpha male has led to men having more severe mental health problems, obviously, dying earlier than women. If you take out, let's say, statistics, men do die earlier than women because they do have all
High
these
rates of
things kept in.
suicide as well, as far as I know.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's that again, like I said, there's a lot of factors to the high rates of suicide, because you have the man at the same time who is also responsible for his whole household. So he eventually does take up more stress in a lot of cases. Let's say if you have a man who's responsible for earning money and responsible for the whole household, he's going to be under the same stress if you have the opposite case scenario, where the woman is more like the only sole earner of the house, right? So if you take those two statistics in a hypothetical situation, even then a woman would be more prone to, let's say, going to a therapist, because again, like you said, the way we've been stereotypically raised to be men is kind of limiting our, let's say, our likeliness to go out and speak to a mental health professional.
It's
that
a sign of weakness.
Definitely needs to change. Yeah, whereas it's not, where it's like you're just stupid, you need to go and get help. There's nothing weak about it. Like it's actually weakness if you give up and say, "Nahi, main khud kar lunga." That's you being stupid.
Yeah, it's weak if you're not willing to be vulnerable, as ironic or
absolutely. That's
as contradictory as that sounds. So
100%.
let's now move to what is going on in our lives right now, the major crisis of COVID-19. We talked about the mental health problems with the current generation and even the generation of our parents. So we're already a bunch of lonely, anxious, lost people, and now an unforeseen pandemic has been, has meant that we've been asked to go physically and socially inward and isolate ourselves from everything. और इसकी वजह से uncertainty, loneliness, anxiety, fear, all of that will compound हो गया. So what impact do you think COVID-19 has had on people's mental health?
Listen, that for an answer for that is, it depends and varies with generation. Like each generation will have a different effect on themselves, and also with occupation. So let's start from the top, right? Elderly, there might not be that much affected in terms of mental health. Might not be,
even though they're at more
probably
risk,
are.
Yeah, which is weird.
Yeah, but I feel like once the studies would show that once you're, let's say, in your 90s, 80s, you've lived your life, the fear of death, it is there definitely, but not as much. And because you lived your life and you fulfilled your goals and dreams, and you're probably with your, like, let's say, with your family, and you're already retired at home. So your life, again, I'm speaking, I don't mean to generalize in any way, but more likely not as badly affected,
Yeah,
let's
so
say.
to
But
back that
even though
up,
they're
I talked to someone elderly in the family, and he was telling me that at a certain age, you more or less make peace with it. You're not scared; it could happen
yeah,
anytime.
absolutely, absolutely. So they might not be as bad. I mean, but the ones who are, we need to look after them as well, because again, we need to make sure that, it's not a mental health. It's just that they've actually accepted and come to peace with it. There's a fine line between that. So by all means, I'm not saying like if somebody just ignores them completely. No, there's going to be, but they're still more well. They're all right. But now coming to the generation before that, let's say the adults, from 30s till 60s. Now, these people are severely in immediate danger right now of this whole situation. And why? Because they've grown up till, like, let's say, adulthood, and they've gone used to a lifestyle right now, and it's been completely taken away from them. The worst thing you can give or take away from a human being is routine. You take away the routine, you completely mess them up. The second thing, the worst thing you can take away, actually as bad as routine, is choice. What can you, what can't you do? The third thing is you put them under a lot of responsibility and take the providence of the responsibility that they can't provide or fulfill the responsibility away from them. All these three things are happening to the adults right now. Routines taken away. They're working from home all of a sudden. They're not allowed to do their jobs. Their responsibility, the stress of not being able to feed their families there, and the choice of going out when they want to is also taken away. So they're in a situation where they don't want to be, and they have no choice. So we need to be extra careful of like adults right now who have all these three things with themselves, understand what they're going through,
And I think one of the
and
important
even
things, sorry to
within
cut
them,
you off, is that all their
it's fine.
hobbies have been taken away as well. So the stuff that they used to go out, have these interactions with people that they like, friends, they used to do these hobbies with other people together. Now, even if, let's say, they played football or watched whatever, some sort of sport with their friends, either they have to do it alone, either they can't do it because there's no sports on, or they have to like kick a ball against the wall alone, which is hardly any
Yeah,
as exciting.
absolutely. Loneliness on its own as well. Absolutely. So the adult demographic needs to be taken in consideration very seriously right now, because in terms of immediate, let's say, threat of mental illnesses, these guys are the ones we need to be looking for. So yeah, and especially within this demographic should be the people who are on the front lines right now. So healthcare workers, uh, police officers, army personnel, volunteers, welfare workers, anybody who's right now working, fighting, combating this pandemic, needs to be taken into consideration. There was a study I read recently. What they did in China was that they made a specific area within hospitals for doctors, and they were forced to take breaks. And they were given, like, within that shift time, they were speaking to psychologists. They were given things to do, like play table tennis and like watch TV shows to like de-stress them out, because there's nothing more stressful than being a frontline worker right now and seeing people die,
Yeah, do
being
you think
where to
people who, this whole generation who was part of the Second World War or even the First World War, who grew up with these sort of traumas because of the part that they, had
Mhm.
in the war. Do you think something similar is going to happen here, that these frontline workers who are combating this pandemic develop these sort of these symptoms or issues related to what they've been doing and what they've been experiencing?
I mean, hopefully not as bad, because again, our mental health facilities have been increased since then. People who came from World War II in the 50s or 40, after 45 or whatever, that time period, those 2 3 decades, they kept on going back into wars again and again, especially like in the West, because there were a lot of wars after World
Yeah,
War. We had the communism coming
yeah,
up, so, and the mental health facilities weren't there, and you're facing a more of, let's say, a more direct kind of a visible, let's say, life threat. Like, when you're in war, you can see
yeah,
the enemy can see you. There's a very much more direct. Right now is a bit twisted, because the enemy is, you can't
yeah.
see
It's
it.
a
You can't
lot
see the enemy.
uncertain,
It's
lot of uncertainty.
exactly. But our mental health facilities, thank God, have improved much more since then. So not as bad, but could be much very well could be because, again, you're working 24/7, you're on call, you're in a room with everybody who's
Yeah,
infected, you're worrying
you're
about
seeing
their
people
life, you're
helpless.
worrying
Yeah.
about your life.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then when you're worrying about your life, you're like, okay, if I get it and then I go home and my family gets it, then that's messed up as well. So there is a lot of people, especially like, so whoever is working in frontline right now, like who is actually a doctor or anybody who's out right now helping these people, they are the people who are most at threat with the mental illness right now, you know. And closely following them is the youth, because, and it's something I am very, this is the generation I'm most concerned for right now, because they don't know what the hell is going on. They have no idea. They are being told to wash their hands. They're being told to not go outside, stay away from everybody, don't shake hands, don't hug each other. uh, they have this fear of death all of a sudden implanted within them
And
at
this is
this
the
young
most
age.
carefree time of your life, basically, where you're just
Exactly. So I have a very bad feeling that if the mental health community does not recognize this youth demographic, we're going to have a pandemic of mental illnesses growing up, because you're washing your hands, linking that with fear. You have a typical case of OCD right in front of you. You're not hugging somebody, you don't trust they're getting close to somebody, you have some kind of a trust issue building up with linking that with fear. That's another mental illness being right up there. So I really do feel that directly right now, in this case and scenario, let's say within the 5 years right now, obviously these adults who are battling the pandemic right now, for sure they're going to be affected. But I really hope that the kids right now going through this, the youth, are explained properly that ye ho kya raha hai and why are we telling you to wash hands. Not like क्या होता है कि sometimes when parents are stressed out themselves, the answer they give their kids is क्योंकि मैंने बोला इसलिए कर लो बस. Like बच्चा पूछता है कि हाथ क्यों धो रहा हूँ, like मैंने बोला ना, मैं I know more, कर लो हाथ धो लो. Don't, no. You need to sit down and explain to the kid what exactly is going on, because if they don't know what's going on, these exact repressed emotions and thoughts are going to haunt them when they're 30 and they're 25, and they're going to suffer from a very bad mental illness, which is going to take half their lifetime to get rid of. So you need to be very careful of that as well at the same time.
yeah.
So all of that, especially.
Yeah. So one of the last things that I think we should touch on is, what solution or advice would you give to someone who's going through mental health issues during COVID-19, where they're lonely, where they're fearful, where they're anxious about what's going on?
Look, obviously, it depends on the situation somebody's in, right? And their what's around them, who's available. So first thing first is, if your family is accepting of mental health and your friends are accepting of mental health, there's nothing better to do than talk to somebody about that. Just open up. You know, if you're still like in the early stages and you're feeling sad and you're feeling nervous and you're feeling uncertain, talk to the people around you and have the hope and believe in the fact that they're going to be listening to you. You know, if you try that and it doesn't work out, then there's a lot of people in the mental health community now in Pakistan who are more than willing to help you out. That I can vouch for that, you know. And if you don't have the money, then I am sure I'm not the only one who's doing this. So if you want to talk to somebody, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are doing this free of cost, and I'm always here for that as well. If you want to reach out to me, so you're not. And again, if it's all confidential, there's nothing you need to be afraid of. So, but do reach out, take responsibility, because sitting and having all these emotions within yourself isn't going to do a lot, you know. And you want to start change, you're going to have to start with yourself. So if you want to help, then you want to have to start helping yourself first as well at the same time. So reach out, yeah, and be there for one another, you know. Talk to each other, be there for one another, and reach out to anybody and everybody you can do, you know.
Yeah.
And just make a supportive system together. That's the most important thing to do.
Yeah. So if you talk to someone and they have issues, they can talk to you. Everyone's like, coexisting, like you said. So if you have some sort of, social media pages or something like that, obviously we could link that in the description below. People who are going through, issues or are feeling some things that they want to talk about, or, have any sort of thoughts in their head they would like to talk to somebody about, and they don't have somebody in their immediate circle who is, accepting of that sort of, behavior or that sort of practice. You can reach out. I think the Psych Bridge and Tashfeen is doing an absolutely amazing job And also, if you set up some sort of GoFundMe page or Patreon for donations, we could link that below as well. You're in Karachi, right? For people who don't know, or who want to maybe reach out to you after the pandemic or even during it, you're based in Karachi and you're doing the Psych Bridge stuff regularly from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great, man. Thanks so much for this absolutely wonderful chat. I think it was a really important topic. It was an important discussion to have in these difficult times, and generally as well. I think mental health is something that needs to be accepted, talked about, and we should all raise awareness about it as well. An absolute pleasure, man. And everyone who's listened, thanks so much. I think all of you stay safe, happy, take care of yourself and the people around you. Until next time, take care.